Our guest today is the Alderman of the 2nd Ward. He is a first-generation American whose father came through Ellis Island, moved to Pullman, and got a job at the Pullman Train Car Company. Pullman, I'm sorry. What did I say? What did I say, Paul? Pullman? Sister, I should have listened. They should have taught me better. Or I should have listened in class, I'm sorry. At the Pullman Train Car Company. Sorry, Dr. Green. He earned his undergraduate degree in political science. He served as president of the student body at the University of Illinois. He earned his law degree from Northern Illinois University. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome back to the City Club of Chicago, Alderman Bob Fioretti. Alderman. All right. Have some fun
as always, thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. And thank you to the City Club, to the board, Paul, Jay. It's an honor to be invited back here to the City Club. To start off, some of you may have been wondering about my health. Well, I just passed the 2-year mark, and the post-illness checkup has been great. The doctors say no sign of cancer, and so everything's improving. So, thanks. I also want to point out one of my colleagues, a mentor and a good friend, Dr. Sandy Goldberg, who assisted me through a lot of the pain and suffering, and through both of us, for Nikki and I. And so thank you, Sandy, for everything. You know, but my throat's still dry, so you'll be seeing me take a few sips of water, and it's not that swoon that some of the other political people have been talking about. But that out of the way, I've got to confess, I did take a look at what I said in October of 2011 as I prepared the remarks for today. And I wanted to listen to them. But what struck me is how much has changed here in the city. That took place before so many watersheds, events that had occurred. Before the teacher's strike, before the announced closing of more than 50 public schools, the largest school closing operation by any city in our nation's history. And above all, before Newtown, before baby Janaea Watkins, before Hadia Pendleton, before the violence that has gripped our city over the past year. And yet, many of you may say, the violence is nothing new. Oh, but the strikes and the revolving door and the leadership at CPS is nothing new. But I'm here today to suggest that something new has happened. Something has shifted. What it is, I believe, is a level of commitment and discontent and renewed determination of the people to fight back, to resist and oppose the rising violence, especially gun violence, to demand more of us, their elected leaders, to stand up and oppose the closing of their neighborhood schools. I can't ever recall seeing a public outcry in every corner of our city as I've seen over these past few weeks. Yes, there is a shift. People who were expecting a change for the better have been disappointed. They are becoming more active and more organized, and we should all be paying attention. And the question is, what will we in this room, leaders from all aspects of Chicago life, citizens active in commerce, culture, and government, what will we do to keep this town from descending into frustration and deeper poverty? What will we do? I submit to you, there's a great deal that we can do. That the quality of life in every corner of this city is tied to the quality of life in Roseland, where I grew up, the back of the yards, in Uptown, or in your community. Nearly every problem besetting our city is related to poverty. That's what I'd like to discuss with you today. I'm the alderman currently of the largest and most diverse ward in the city of Chicago, the 2nd Ward. It's a complicated ward, to say the least, running from affluence and comfort to the extreme opposite. The growth in population on the west and south loops have generated great opportunity We have new restaurants, new shops, and all sorts of new small businesses in both the future and the current Second Ward and beyond. We have much to do if we want to maintain and upgrade our city. I've worked with bringing in small businesses and to host job fairs, including one I'm sponsoring next month just for veterans. But it takes an entire city to address violence, education, and economic development. These three are tightly interwoven at the block level, at the community level, at the ward level, citywide, and nationwide. You can't solve one without the other. You can't attack one without a cohesive plan. To that end, I've worked to create environments that will continue to support and expand the middle class in our city and in my ward specifically. I've many times called for funding for tourism as an investment to attract more visitors to our city. We need to support programs like the federal low-income housing tax credit, which incentivizes corporations to invest capital and generates equity for quality, affordable, I got one, Jay, thank you, development and job creation. It also means investing in parks, playgrounds, and streetscapes, such as the newly completed Congress Parkway in the South Loop. We've worked to upgrade and expand the options for affordable and high-quality child care and public education in the ward. Still, there are stretches of this city which lack basic features, such as a full-service grocery. I'm proud to say that Pete's Fresh Produce is under construction and is scheduled to open this summer at Madison and Western, closing a food desert, creating jobs, and returning a vacant parcel of property back to the tax rolls. In the Second Ward, we brought a number of stores, including Trader Joe's, Costco, and Target. But there are areas that you still can't buy fresh produce, where the stock in trade is flaming hot chips, pop, cigarettes, liquor, and lottery tickets. They are all bad influences for our kids on the way to and from school. We still have areas where there are no branch bank, no pharmacy, no movie theater, and yet we have some of the best eating areas on Taylor Street and on Madison, but go a half a mile west and there's relatively few dine-in and sit-down restaurants. And it's not easy to make a case for development in some areas where we have such negative statistics. The closing or reducing of public services and institutions present a discouraging face rather than an inviting one. And it doesn't have to be this way. Chicago is a productive city, and yet not enough of the wealth which is produced here is being used to revitalize the city itself, especially our neighborhoods. The most striking example of this misplaced resources is some $1 billion in TIF funds sitting idly, earning virtually 0% interest. About $500 million a year comes into the TIF fund, and we can be applying $250 million a year in TIF dollars to our city public schools. That is why my colleagues and I on the City Council and other public education advocates are looking at an ordinance and state statute to redirect TIF dollars to the schools. Thank you. The school closings have been touted as a cost-saving measure. But what will the impacts of these closures cost our communities? The schools that are on the closing list are characterized as underutilized, yet they are highly utilized by the families who depend on them. In my case, 3 or 4 generations from the same families have attended and gone on to work in or volunteer in these neighborhood elementary schools, centers of strong communities. These schools are the primary contact point for nutritional services, after-school recreation, and even for health care. The school is often the most stable institution in the neighborhood. To imagine leaving for a larger, unfamiliar institution 15 blocks away across gang territories and major thoroughfares is a fearful dilemma, not only for the children, but for the parents. I've attended nearly a dozen of these recent hearings on school utilization. Nowhere is the shift to which I referred to earlier more evident. It's stunning to see on a cold, freezing, windy night, parents coming out with babies in arms, lining to attend a hearing. I can't imagine another issue that could bring people out in these numbers and with such unity of purpose. And yet, I have to say, the hearings were a charade. The decisions were already made. Neither the mayor, nor Dr. Bird Bennett, nor any actual members of the Board of Education attended these hearings. An appointed panel instead listened to the testimony, not the people who are making the decisions. Believe me, it would have done them good to see and hear and feel the fire for themselves. They are, I believe, making a big mistake, and it's not too late to reverse that direction. Yes, there are schools in some cases with big problems, but they are not problems you can solve by turning them over to a private and essentially unaccountable charter operation. That solves nothing. Folks, you can't have it both ways. If the rationale for closing a school is that it is underutilized, then you can't turn around and open a charter school in the same area. Now think about it. The CPS has approved another 60 new charter schools to be opened in the next 4 years. There was a time when I may have supported some of those charters, but with all the problems our school system faces, innovation and creativity in approach are certainly to be encouraged. But now that we've seen the results of this charter experiment, it has become clear to me overall that they have not been as beneficial to our children or to our city. These operators often come in with a record without a record of significantly boosting academic achievement. Some have questionable records when it comes to fiscal management. There is little evidence that these charters will produce better outcomes academically, but there is plenty of evidence from the last 15 years of Chicago charter schools that they have had a negative effect on the surrounding neighborhood schools. Yes, there is a dogged persistence in ignoring what the research has demonstrated. There are nearly 35 members of the City Council, myself included, who have moved to place a moratorium on the granting of new charter schools. You know what really bothers me is the lack of stakeholder involvement, which is in large part why we need an elected school board. The proposed, and there's a few people that, thank you. The proposed school closings will destabilize neighborhoods most in need of stable, family-oriented institutions. Neighborhoods which need the gyms, the libraries, the computer labs open at night. Last week, I visited an elementary school on the west side that is slated for closure. The teacher told me a story that I've heard so many times across this city, that they can't get their students to leave and go home at the end of the day. In school, they feel safe. There are activities, snacks, caring adults who know them. Small wonder they don't want to leave. That walk or that bus ride home from school is the scariest part of their day. No wonder the closing of schools has proven to increase dropout rates as well as the rates of street violence. Superintendent McCarthy has promised that every child whose school is closed will be able to go safely between home and the new school. But where are the new officers on the streets to protect these children? Where are they even for the neighborhoods while the schools are still open? Ask any police officer, and he or she will tell you, as they often tell me, that they are waiting for the extra hands on deck. Promises are being made, and promises are broken every day. We need a stronger police presence, but we need timely intervention. I've been allowed an adamant voice on this, even going so far as one out of the 3 aldermen out of the 50 that voted against the mayor's budget because of this issue. And I said at that time, I would not vote for any budget that does not allow for the additional new police officers so that we can get not only fuller to capacity, but additional police officers. Still, one pastor came up to me from my ward. He agreed with my position, but he said, we can't police our way out of the problem. And he's right. We need a full complement of police officers, but we also need to focus on engaging young people in programs, in jobs, improving our schools rather than closing them, and also diminishing the easy availability of weapons. We have a responsibility as elected officials to protect the most vulnerable community members, and none of them are more vulnerable than our children. You know, all of us here, whether in the corporate world, the legal world, public service, we are about return on investment, making the investment to provide our city's most vulnerable residents, especially the children, with protection, medical, and social services they need. How can we not make this a collective priority? One model that I'd like to highlight is the Chicago Children's Advocacy Center. They've helped lead the development of a coordinated child abuse response system for urban centers throughout the country. Last year, responding to over 2,500 cases. I was proud to support TIF funding for their building in addition to allow them to expand. And I'd like to thank CCAC Executive Director, Shar Rivet, who is here with us today for her hard work. Shar, thank you very much. You know, our churches and not-for-profits like CCAC, in addition to our neighborhood schools, play a tremendous role in providing a safety net in our city. Food banks, shelters, counseling, and mentoring. Yet, somehow we have decided that we cannot find the dollars in our budget to continue to aid these organizations with their water and sewer costs in exchange for the value they provide in our communities every day. This is an approach in public policy that we've seen in recent years. Shared sacrifice was the slogan. But it's becoming clear that the most vulnerable are bearing this burden, and it's costly, and it's costing all of us dearly. Because as one city, the destinies of our diverse communities are bound together. We must recognize that a large part of the blame for violence in our streets and the problems that we face in our schools is poverty. Across this country, urban centers that have had the greatest success in reducing violent crime are those that have the most robust economic development plans, public works plans, and youth employment programs. Look at Boston, look at Milwaukee. The evidence is there. It's crucial. It's not magic. It's within our reach. We need visionary, empathetic leadership that can create programs appropriate to our time. As I've often said, we should start with public-private partnerships. Start in the neighborhoods, making the best use of public funds we are entrusted to spend, and leverage it with private capital for our creative ingenuity. If we fail to do the hard work of building and rebuilding, but instead choose a path of turning out the lights, then shame on us. I think you all know I'm proud of being a Chicagoan. I love this city, and I believe our best days are still ahead. So I ask you all in this room, take on a bit more, support one of the many worthwhile causes in our city. Let's commit to that, recommit to that vision of building a city that is beautiful because of our lake, our parks, our architecture, our people, our creativity, our work ethic. We will be successful mainly because we show respect and because our people lift themselves to the full potential and because we keep our promises. Thank you.
Time for some questions. Didn't like your speech. City Club E will be passing among you. Here's the first one. Sounds like you may be interested in more than the second ward re-election in 2015. I wonder who wrote that one. Boy, that's personal.
Yeah.
Paul Green. Oh, well.
Anyway, I think as some of you may have read my comment over the weekend, I'm interested in making sure I'm getting healthy and developing an independent, strong city council. And that's what I'm aiming for right now and focusing on.
Okay.
That was a good answer.
A non-answer answer? Excellent. Wonderful.
Thank you, Paul.
You've learned, Alderman. No training from me on that one. Aunt Marie St. Germain, Board of Governor member. Very long question, but because you're a Board of Governor, we'll read it. Your remarks focus on legitimate concerns citywide. Returning to your ward, please comment on the issues and projects and your transition to revised ward boundaries. Remember, we have Sister Sheila here, and we have a few other.
So I won't say certain words?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Obviously, the remap was done, and I believe for political purposes and keeping the pension alive of a few aldermen. It separated, and I think there was an anger out there over the way the remap was handled. Last week when the lawsuit was filed, I heard a lot of comments. We got a lot of calls into my office. We're servicing both the old ward, because that's where I can only do the mundane things like garbage pickup, issuing citations on businesses that are and folks that are violating our health, safety, welfare policies, and I can't do that up on the new second ward. All I can do up there is make sure I have the zoning right. Now, as they say, go figure. And I also concerned, and I've got a small staff, they're all here, and they make me look good, the three of them. But the problem is, as some of the, the problem is, I think, we've got to look at what democracy is and how the remap came about. When you talk about it in that morning, that nobody had seen the final map, nobody had seen the map, it comes to us at a 9:30 Rules Committee. It comes down at 9:40. At 10 o'clock, we vote on the map. And I think many of you saw the pictures in the papers, and if not on the news, of the aldermen trying to find out where their map is and who they are. Aldermen had very little input into the map. So.
Okay. Bernard Edelman. Where are you, Bernie?
He's
way in the back.
Way in the back.
Well, yeah. Okay. Oh, I got a couple of hardballs. I'll give you a soft one. Why is it that you are the only alderman asking the right questions of IDOT so that the proposed circle interchange project does not become another hillside strangler?
Well, because I still represent the second ward as it stands. I've looked at the issue up there. My letter that's going out to the governor that I'm working on right now has certain aspects that I'm concerned about Greektown that may end up becoming a desert because of the way the flyover is over Halsted. I think there's issues that have to be addressed now, because as these projects move, and whether it's 5 years from now or 10 years from now, we need to address them now. IDOT did commit to me to have more public hearings. So we had some sort of victory there, but I have to educate the rest of the aldermen and those that have Greektown that will take over those areas. And I think they need to get out there, and I think the whole of the city council needs to get out there. Because moving transportation is one of our biggest industries, and these cars and trucks that come in here have to come in a certain way. I mean, we've got some of the best rail, we've got the lakefront, and we need to have the trucks and autos that come in through the city have to come in a safe way, but it has to be a way that doesn't impact negatively on our the people's real estate there.
For those of you who don't think all politics is local, now, Ellie Foreman, where are you, Ellie? Raise your hand. By the way, very nice printing. This is really nice writing. But, Alderman, I hope you can answer this question because this is what a lot of aldermen have to do. Alderman 45th Ward will agree. I am a resident of the 43rd Ward on the strip of Sedgwick that will soon become under your jurisdiction. Maybe a tad of a stretch there, but that's okay. My biggest issue is a large amount of litter attributable to that Sedgwick L stop and the convenience store there that serves my neighborhood, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. How have you managed similar garbage and litter issues in your ward? That's what being an alderman's about.
You'd almost think it's elementary, but it's something called garbage cans. Believe it or not, I propose a litany of garbage cans, the decorative ones. We pay for it out of the menu, 800 of them. $800 a garbage can. They're secured. They get picked up. I got to tell you, I'm writing a letter to the commissioner because those plastic liners, sometimes you get all kinds, they're 50, 60, 100 pounds of garbage. I don't know how some of the streets and sand people can pick them up. But we have them all over the Second Ward. I was told, believe it or not, by one of the heads of Streets and Sand, we shouldn't have garbage cans. People on the west side won't use them. I said, they don't? Well, and people on the south side won't use them. They won't? Well, they can't empty them fast enough. On one place, we have routes on Monday and Fridays to pick up the garbage that's dumped in them. It's the same thing and the same approach that when I proposed the grid system in 2009, which this mayor has adopted as a form of pickup of garbage, that we need to be uniform and make sure that we clean it up. The other thing, obviously, swap using some of our programs for those that have gone through our jail system, community service. I think all those should be looked at in the area.
Two more questions. One's from Joyce Saxon, Board of Governors. What is now being done to prevent future tweeter gangs who disrupted traffic on Michigan and Chicago? That goes on, but that's the question.
I'm surprised that what we've done, first of all, on 35th Street, we had this issue. We have 14 high schools off of 35th Street. And at 3 o'clock, they'd pull out their cell, they'd go like this, and they'd say, we're going to have a hookup between the various gangs. We started monitoring that then. We broke up what the problems were. We used to get 300 kids at 35th Street, down a couple blocks from White Sox Park, and we ended up breaking it up. I do know it's being monitored. The L jumping, the gates are being monitored on significant stops where they jump the gates. And there's a lot of, obviously there's a lot of intervention on Michigan Ave, but what does that do? It takes away the police from the communities, so we don't have enough police protection in the communities, and that's why we need additional police officers.
Okay, last question, and it's a doozy. Elected school board. Who would draw the map? Or would they all run at large? Moreover, who would be most likely to run?
Hey, anonymous, by the way. Well, thanks, Anonymous. But it's a good question. And I think there have been various maps that have been proposed since about 1985. And how you do it, what you do, it's a good question. I think the at-large approach may have some issues. There are different forms throughout the country. And, of course, the city of Chicago is the only one in the state of Illinois that does not have an elected school board district. We can look at it as we go along. But who would run? I don't know. I sometimes have to laugh when I hear, well, the teachers are going to take over the school board. Well, if the teachers were going to take over the school board, they take over the city council first, and that hasn't happened. You know, you know, democracy has its ways, but there's accountability in an elected school board. We don't have any accountability right now with the appointed school board. So,
how about a big round of applause for our alderman?